What's up, everyone? I'm Jared Harris. Welcome back to episode 5, a very special episode of Beats by Jer. Today, I am joined by none other than Danny Miles, drummer of Toronto alternative rock icons July Talk. Earlier this year, the band released their fourth full-length album, Remember Never Before, which was followed by a headlining tour across North America, including a pair of dates at Toronto's Massey Hall. Since then, the band has released July Talk, Love Lives Here, a documentary compiling footage from the last decade, culminating with a drive-in show performed at the height of the pandemic. Hear about all of this and so much more from my conversation with Danny Miles. Danny, welcome. Thank you very much once again for joining me on Beats by Jer.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited. So let's start with 2023. This has been a huge year for July Talk. I want to congratulate you and the band with the record, the tour, the documentary. It's arguably, from an outsider looking in, maybe the biggest year the band has ever had.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to tell for sure when you're in it, because I know we've had much busier years in the past as far as touring and stuff. So we're a little older now, a little more established, so we don't have to tour in a van around the world basically for months and months. When Touch came out, I would say that was probably our busiest time, and we learned a lot from that experience where we would just go on 4-month long tours and do they got excruciating, really, because I mean it's super fun to play all the time, but the amount of traveling we were doing, and we weren't really a big enough band to be traveling cushy in a bus or anything, so we were just doing van and trailer, minimal crew, basically just us and our front of house tour manager Karen. And yeah, 4 months straight we would do start in the US, then kind of get on a flight and go to Europe, and then get on another flight and go to Australia, and then get on a flight and come back and do the US, and then do Canada, and just never be home other than our Toronto shows, because we all lived in Toronto at that point. So yeah,
Wow,
that
crazy.
feels to me,
Yeah.
that feels like the craziest time of our band, because we're just a little more sane these days, I guess, where we get to play more, especially in Canada. We get to play our headlining tour, and they're a lot nicer. And then when we go to the States, we don't try to tackle the whole country. We just do areas at a time.
I
Because
mean, I think it was brought up in the documentary looking for a more sustainable way of doing the tours, right?
yeah, I mean the documentary is a great place to kind of start and look at. You get a really condensed version of what our band has gone through for the past 12 years, and it's all based around this the drive-in shows that we did during the pandemic. um
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
touches on that tour a lot, for the Touch tour. So, but yes, thank you so much. I do think we're with the doc and everything, Brittany did amazing, and Peter and Leia worked really hard on top of everything else to collect everyone in the team and put that together. So yeah, that's huge. The album we're really proud of. um I kind of think that it's the album that sounds the most like us live, which we've always kind of struggled with, I think. And we're known as a live band, I believe. So it's kind of good to get something that is a good representation of that, or at least as, you know, we'll keep trying to get closer. You never make a perfect record. You're always, I mean, even if people consider them perfect records, which this is not, but if you made Rumors, I imagine Fleetwood Mac wasn't we can never top that. I'm sure they tried.
Well, they tried, and I mean, I love Tusk. I love Tusk
It's
and
great.
everything that it represents to Rumors, but uh, you could only, if you're fortunate enough to reach that level once, you know? And are you
And that's not like
necessarily,
many bands. I mean, what are you looking at? 0.1% of bands
yeah,
classic albums that everyone on the face of the earth knows, right?
absolutely. And at that point, you reading Rick Rubin's book earlier this year and listening to all the podcast circuit that he did, you're not necessarily obligated to feel that you have to, quote unquote, beat your last record. You can just make more arts that's just you making arts, and you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be this
Well,
competitive thing with yourself.
I think it's like a lot of those records are made in a like a place and a time. Like I was listening to your podcast and you were talking your first episode and talking about the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think Blood Sugar Sex Magic,
Absolutely.
their best album, that's nostalgic for me. I grew up listening to that record and I've watched the documentary Funky Monks on YouTube a million times. I just think they were in like a really great creative space. And Rick Rubin obviously was like not the Rick Rubin he is today. He was like that is one of the albums that made him the Rick Rubin he is today. And like I think that whole process was a place and time, and the product that came out of it is you can't like plan that. It just happens.
Of course.
And so I think that's kind of what it is. And then as long as the bands and the people in the bands don't lose sight of why they're making music and art, they can like move on and make other great music. Unfortunately, sometimes egos or money or just, you know, I think like a lot of the times when bands make their like greatest albums, they're kind of in like a rough or like not so great spot in their life. So they have a lot to talk about and a lot to like get out of their system. And maybe once they become all like cushy rock stars, it's harder to like find that real place to grab from. Um, but yeah, I mean, I love a band. My favorite, one of my favorite bands. I have a few, but like REM is
Okay. Yeah.
one of my favorite bands, and I know that I feel like their music these days isn't like translated to like people don't think about that band like they're like as to me as important as that band is, and their catalog up to like uh New Adventures in Hi-Fi, like that album's the last album I really care about, but like it's just like an untouchable catalog. And they just went through this whole real kind of era, even though they were a huge rock band at certain points in their career, they still made these like beautiful, amazing records that came from the heart, it feels like, and creative places. And like a lot of their records, you can hear the influence and the evolution of their music, but they all kind of have a different vibe. So they're like where they were in that place and time. It seems like they just stayed real and true to
I
who they
think so.
are.
They're very authentic, I think. And I'm not super familiar with a lot of their music, but there's definitely that sort of artistic there's that pursuit for creativity, that artistic nature. It seems very pure with them, and they are often excluded from conversations of their time and what they meant to alternative rock and their influence on that sort of 2000s post rock. I mean, Michael Stipe is just so prolific.
Yeah, he's amazing. I actually think like, and I'm sure if you talk to like Pavement and I mean if Kurt was around, Nirvana, but like they started like indie rock kind of like that whole college rock scene, like it really kind of like came from that band, I think. And yeah. Why am I drawing blank? What's the singer of Pavement right now? Do you know Pavement?
I know the band. I don't know.
Even Malcolmus had like a brain fart. Anyways, Stephen Malcolmus wrote a whole song about REM and how important that band is. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, I love REM.
uh, so let's bring it back to July Talk then.
Yeah.
Let's start off with the album Remember Never Before. What can you tell me about the writing, the recording, just the making of this album? Because I should preface this when you said that you think this was the record that sounds most like you guys. I have it in my notes here that to me this was like, having always appreciated the band, having always appreciated your work, this was the album that made me go like, I get it. And it was like that sort of like it all makes sense. And it's to me, this album sounds like this is the band that you have been trying to capture in the studio,
Yeah.
and you did exactly that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that comes across because I do kind of think that's the case. Um, well, this writing process for this record was a little different because we had we added a member to our band. So we have Danny Nash in the band now who does like a lot of auxiliary everything. Like she's just doing whatever the band needs, and like on our old songs when there's like layers and stuff we can't do live, she's doing that. So vocals, keys, percussion, a lot of percussion, obviously, like stuff like that. So we had her in the studio, but we also had Kevin Drew from Broken Social Scene, and he wasn't there for like all of the writing process, but like this was a massive part of our writing process for this. Was we like went to our jam space, which also does have a recording capabilities, like good recording capabilities, and Ian Doherty, our guitar player, is a great producer engineer, so he can record like on the spot. So I did use like for the drums, like I think I used three or four tracks that we like probably when we were like writing the song and kind of got it down, I did like two takes. Like it would have been like the second take, and that's like what's on the record. So that happened, which was, which makes it feel more spontaneous and in the moment, like a live performance. But Kevin Drew would just kind of like come in and be like, you can't come in with any like ideas. We're just gonna like get in a room together and we're just gonna start, and no one can say no, but you just gotta like build on and jam on what people are doing. And he would do things like point at me and just be like, all right, Danny, play a beat. And then just like, okay. And just like out of nowhere, it's kind of like maybe what I was listening to when I was driving into the rehearsal space would influence what I played. So like a song like I Am Water sticks out to me, and he's just like pointing at me like, let's go. And I've been listening to like a lot of like post punky, like new post punky type stuff on the way in. So like Shame and like Idols and Viagra Boys and stuff like that. And so I started playing something in that world. And then everyone just started like building off of that. And that's really like how I would say half that record was made, just like doing that kind of thing.
So
And so
would
it's
you
a cool process because it was very different than like our last, than Pray For It, where like those songs were like more already established. Like, of course, we came in and changed and made them more like July talky, but people kind of like had more like songs completed type idea. So this was just a different thing, which was super fun.
would you say that this was the most collaborative record from a songwriting perspective in that case?
Yeah, I don't, I guess like we do write like that kind of already. The thing that was completely different was not coming in with ideas at all.
Hmm.
Like normally people will come in with like riffs or like even like a song that's kind of already there. And it changes a lot once the band all starts like jamming on it. And we'll just like go through like there's different versions of a lot of our songs that like just changed over time. Like they'll have a different vibe. Like Paper Girl, for instance, was like a country song. And then like Ian joined our band. Actually, that's not true. Then we just kind of, I mean, Ian did join our band after we were more of a country band, and he brought a lot of the rock guitar like to our band kind of vibe. But like that song, yeah, we just made it more of a rocky song, and that was the end product. And it just, they evolve over time kind of thing. We do that a bit less. I mean, that's not true because like Certain Father we wrote, that was like from Pray For It or even Touch. like Peter kind of had that idea for Certain Father, which ended up on this record, but it was a different vibe. Funny enough, it kind of was like had a running up the hill. What's that song that got huge on
Yeah,
streaming?
running Kate Bush, right?
Kate Bush. So
Yeah.
yeah, like that was a big influence for like the drums and stuff on the early version. Then like eventually it kind of got more of a Nine Inch Nails kind of vibe or some Bowie kind of vibe.
I definitely hear Scary Monsters. Maybe it's just the guitar tone on the riff, but
Yeah.
I definitely hear a Bowie vibe to that song.
Yeah. I mean, Bowie's like such a massive influence on us. Our daughter's name is Ziggy.
Oh,
But
amazing. Amazing.
and I love Nine Inch Nails a lot. So like I mean, not that I but I push a lot of music on the rest of the band. It feels like if we're like like starting a so I want to have an idea of what a direction is, because I feel like sometimes Peter will like come in with songs and they're like beautiful kind of piano-y ballady type things, but they're not really meant to just be that way. So I want to understand like what are the vibe that we're going through, because a lot of the stuff kind of starts with drums up.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you kind of like have to start what the
I,
song's going to be from that place. So like if you know if people are like, I want this one to be kind of The Cure, it's like, okay, I have an idea. I'm not gonna like rip off a Cure song, but it's like in my head, I'm like, this is what a Cure world looks like to me.
I think a lot of vibe and energy does often start with the drums. The
Hmm.
drums can just shift the direction of the song so much and just not necessarily like make it a different song per se, but you can just the flavor, the way you approach the backbeat, there's just so many ways that you can alter that energy and just tilt the song more leaning into a certain tone or style.
I think it does really like it's interesting. I was just asked to like I was asked to replace some drums on a record recently. It didn't end up working out because I think the producer that actually like did the whole record ended up being like, no, we want to use the drums we have. But the songwriter was kind of like, I don't know if I love these drums. Like, will you try something? So I was just trying stuff at my home studio and I didn't really listen to what was already there. So I just like one song and I only ended up doing one song, but I like just did what I felt and then kind of and then listened again. It's the same recording, everything, but the drums are different, and it's so different. Like it
Hmm.
changed the song completely, and I think that's also why, like they were going for a vibe, obviously, and I just like did my own thing, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna like send this to you and see what you think. But yeah, it's interesting. Like drums can really change a song immensely, like hugely, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like what type of song it is, for sure.
Yeah, and on that note, and going back to the idea of, you know, starting with the drums and just that spontaneous songwriting style, I have in my notes here some hip hop elements on this record. Just
Oh yeah.
the way the bass stops while the drums continue on after this. I Am Water. I felt the way the bass and drums just kind of locked together. It almost felt like the two of you were just laying down like a rhythmic beat for someone to then just kind of lay the leads over. And I mean, in the case of July Talk, that's the vocals and the guitars and additional textures. But you could take those drums and bass, and it would almost be like the foundation of like a hip hop track.
Yeah. I mean, I produce hip hop and I'm just like that's some of my other like favorite group would be Beastie Boys growing up and like massive Beastie Boys fan, and then just like hip hop in general. I love that's probably the genre I listen to most. And so I'm massively influenced by that. And then yeah, so Josh, our bass player, is like already a guy that locks. He's like very influenced by more like dancey music, like Daft Punk and stuff like that. And so and he understands that I love hip hop. And so he does a lot of like really like every kick. It's really interesting. He always wants our kick, like he always wants to figure out what my kick pattern is, and then for it to be kind of like consistent, even if it's like we do, but it's got to be like a pattern because he wants to lock on the kick
Yeah.
every time. That's like his style, and it's really cool. It makes, as you said, it's kind of got like a bit of a hip hop dancey vibe to it. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think our band's kind of like an indie alternative dance band, I guess. I would like, a lot of our like more singles type songs are like dancey songs. But yeah, and then a song like Hold on the record is just like, it's not a loop, but basically I played that beat like a loop the whole way through, and it's very hip
Yeah.
hop.
Yeah. I hear it. I hear it. So this is the first album with Danny Nash on like percussion and auxiliary parts, correct?
Yeah, because I think Adam Hindle played on the last record, like
Cool.
some percussion stuff. But yeah, Danny definitely, like, she's been playing with us for a while live, but this would have been the first time that she's like fully involved, like in the studio and all that.
Cool. Cool. How does working with a percussionist change your approach to deciding what you're going to play?
Yeah, I mean, I already like for July Talk play like quite simple beats. Like that's what we do. It's not ever like we're not like a prog band or anything. So and I love hip hop stuff and bands like Spoon and Nirvana, and like everything's pretty like simple. And so like for a percussionist, I think that's like another like it's just like a good basis for people to like sprinkle stuff on. And I think percussion really adds like a lot of movement. And so when we were writing this record and she was in the room doing the percussion with me for like I Am Water or something, like yeah, it just adds like the groove. It just makes it groove a lot for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean percussion can like a little goes a long way sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I was just adding some percussion to a track and I had all these plans. I had the djembe, I had the conga, I had everything out and I threw just one shaker on and like tambourine on 2 and 4 and I was like this feels like a meal that is the bowl is full. Like there's no
Yeah.
room for anything else. And all it took
Yeah.
was just like that little bit of shaker, right?
Yeah. That's all, and it adds that mood. That's what they're there for. Yeah, I don't think like, I mean, unless there's certain like Latin music and stuff like that, but even still, I think like percussion should be like quite simple and tasteful and just really like be consistent and strong, because it is like groove is such a, it's about being like in the pocket. My wife would love, she knows what in the pocket is now because she kept asking like, what the hell are you guys talking about being in the pocket?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know if I've dropped that phrase around my wife enough. I don't know. I don't know if she'd know that. I'll have to test that one out.
Yeah, so she knows what it is now. But yeah, I think it's just like feeling that groove. And obviously it's all different types of music are different things. Like, you know, you don't hear a lot of percussion in a Rush song because what he's doing enough.
Yeah,
He's got
there's
enough
so
going on.
much from Neil Peart, right?
Yeah, like he's just crushing it, and
And
he's
then
super
he's
technical.
playing the percussion that's attached to his kit. And
Yeah,
there's
that's true. He's playing it all. He's
yeah, he's
doing
got the bells and chimes and everything.
yeah. He was magical.
Yeah. Looking at your drum set, when I caught you guys at Massey Hall and then, the documentary, it's obviously so different from like a Neil Peart drum set. And I mean, there's like a spectrum to what the instrument can look like in terms of setup. Uh, was there ever a point like when you were, like a young musician just starting out and like super eager and it was like we're gonna do the Neil Peart drum set thing, maybe not with July Talk, but
Hmm.
was there ever that point and then you were just like, all I need is this simple, clean setup, or has that
Interesting. I
always
don't
kind of been
know
what
if
you've looked at?
Yeah, I've just always been influenced by it's funny, like, I look like, we toured with, uh, like, Cody and Kevin.
Yeah,
Mm, oh my god. What's the band called right now?
Crownlands.
Crownlands. I'm having brain farts all over the place. Stephen Malcolmus and Crownlands. Anyways, yeah, Crownlands obviously are like a very technical band, and Cody's like a crazy technical drummer with like a million drums, and he knows how to use it, and he looks great behind it. And they look great behind it, and they yeah, they obviously grew up like idolizing and looking up to drummers like, well, I know for a fact they love Bill Bruford and Neil Peart and stuff like that. So I grew up loving drummers from like punk bands and hip
Mm,
hop. So I never like had like the drive, or like I always liked the look of a Simple Kit because all my favorite drummers had Simple Kits. I guess like I do love Chad Smith from Chili Peppers. He doesn't have such a Simple Kit, but like, you know, Dave Grohl and like all those dudes. I mean, a lot of the 70s stuff, like the more simple kits like Black Sabbath and Hendrix and stuff like that. So Rage Against the
yeah,
Machine, rad.
yeah.
So it's more, they're definitely not like, the most technical guys in the world, but I was always just like influenced, like love that stuff, the Stooges, like Iggy Pop and all that. So it's kind of what I gravitate towards. And I mean, I should have sat down at Cody's kit and seen what happens, because I've never really sat down at a kit with that many drums. It's probably super fun. And
Yeah.
I'm more opening up nowadays to like trying to like, I want to explore that more. I think the technical and more drums. I think like honestly too, like maybe having more drums and instruments, it just kind of sounds a little busier and more dynamic potentially. Yeah, I also loved like Buddy Rich,
Okay,
the
yeah, yeah.
like jazz guys and stuff, and they always played simple kits. So that's kind of where I was coming from with that type of thing. It
Yeah,
was just what
cool.
I like was into.
The dimensions of your kit, at least from what I saw when watching the documentary, it looked like a jazz kit, right? You know, the smaller shallower toms, especially the kick as well.
Hmm. Yeah, the kick on this kit is only 20, and that had a lot to do with it's 20 by 12, and that had a lot to do with when I was recording this record, I was using a 20 like all the time because I just wanted like more of that like funk hip hop sound. And then Jordan of Jordan YC drums, like we just communicate about what I am looking for. He like knows, he also kind of like influence you, like, no, this is the sizes that would be great for you. And so
I've I've never met Jordan, but he is such a guru of
he's
pace
a legend.
and like he knows everything about drums.
Yeah. I mean, he's just one of those guys that's like a serious drum nerd. Like he is so passionate about drums and building drums. He plays, but he just loves like the technic, like the building, the tuning, like just all the gear side of drums. He just is like obsessed with it. And so I don't need to like overly, I tell him what I like or what sounds I'm kind of like going for, and he just knows like this is what you need. And so I mean, I can't really compete with his knowledge, so I kind of just trust him, and we like build kits together. He found like the rap that's on it because he's like, "You'll love this rap." When I saw it, I knew you'd love it, and he was right. Love the rap, but the Tom like 13 and a 16, which are the same. I think they're a little more shallow than, I don't know what they're a little more shallow than my last two YC
Hmm.
kits.
Well, they sound awesome. They sound fantastic. Super
They
punchy.
somehow sound like, yeah, they're punchy and big. Like the kick sounds pretty,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's super easy to play, which is
Eh,
also great.
of course. Yeah. And for the drum nerds, like myself, it might only be me at this point listening. But what snare were you using at the Massey Hall shows?
It's all YC. So that is a maple snare. That one. Um, yeah. All the drums I use are YC at that point. But yeah, he really like early on he tried to get me like into using his snares. That was the first thing. And I didn't love them back in the day, but he's gotten so much better over the years. And I think his snares are starting to sound incredible. I actually have at my home studio, like I think it's his first metal snare. So I actually have it here. I know he's made more. Um, our friend Abe, his dad works at like a 3D printing, metal printing place. So he got him to like make the shells. But that sounds amazing. It just weighs like I don't know, 60 pounds.
Wow.
It's insane.
How big
It's
is it?
so heavy. It's a 14 by I'm looking at it now. 8 maybe? It's a little
Hmm.
deeper.
Okay.
But
It's heavy.
sounds great. Very heavy. I might be exaggerating, but it's not like it's very heavy. But yeah.
Yeah, it sounded fantastic. And I mean, shifting from the album to the live show, you said that you guys are always kind of been a live band, and you look at other fantastic live bands from any points in the last, 50, 60 years. Their best albums are always the albums that sound like they found a way to capture that energy.
Mhm.
Um, to you, what goes into making a July Talk concert such a unique experience?
I just think that our band is like we are never happy. It's like we're just never happy with our shows. Sometimes we're like, oh, that was a great show, but it's not like you're like you never go into the next show feeling like you've done it. You're like, this one has to be as good as the last one or better. Usually, like you're like, it's gotta be better. This is like I can only speak from my brain and mentality, but I feel like this is like the collective of the July Talk thing. It's like every show, like I don't know if we've ever like half-assed a show.
Oh, I don't think you guys have ever
The only
done
time
that.
we've ever
No.
like when we have a bad show, it's like obviously you're gonna have a bad show. Every once in a while, it's like it's out of your control. Or we've had bad shows because we've just been like touring too much and like not had time to sleep and like the energy levels are down. That's just from exhaustion. But like even sometimes that doesn't matter and they're just connect. Like our band doesn't do it like there's no tracks, there's no click. It's all
There's no click, eh?
no. I count songs in visually on a click. So like I'll have like the click on like a little thing, metronome thing that just blinks the lights. And so I kind of just like start song off in the world. Think it's pretty consistent, I've heard, because like when we were making the doc, there was a lot of live performance and she was going through different things and like for clips and they were lining up pretty well. But I mean, back in the day, early on, and this would be my fault, I guess, but I kind of think it's cool because I love punk. But like we would play songs super fast. Like if you watch performances from probably like 2012 to like 2015, 16, who knows when it got more consistent. But our band was just a crazy energy band.
There's such a chaotic energy, and it's almost like a controlled chaos. There are elements that are not stagnant, but there are elements that are like a foundation to these other elements, like Peter and Leia just doing their thing
Hmm.
in like just uncontrollably so, and to great effect. And I
Yeah.
think that also comes through in the songwriting as well. Like there's a lot of elements that are like foundational and it feels very refined, and then out of nowhere, like a guitar line just kind of almost like rips through
Yeah.
like like the recording as a whole, and it's such a cool energy that you guys have harnessed in studio and live, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we learned really early on. So there's kind of like obviously there's like not a divide within the band, but there's Josh, Ian, and I, and then there's Peter and Leia. And that goes from like how I mean, we all play together. We're not separate, but it's separate in the way that Josh, Ian, and I learned early on because especially in the early days, those two were like out of their mind. And and it's incredible. It's amazing to watch, and I'm blown away
Absolutely.
that they can like it's not planned, it's not choreographed. Sure, they do the same thing sometimes. I'm not saying they're like just changing it every night, but it's like they have things they do, but it's unpredictable. None of it's planned out. It's all crazy. And so early on, you learn that like Peter can't really play guitar when Leia's on his back throwing him around. And so it's just insane. And so you're like, the three of us have to hold this down. Because if we're not holding it down, then no one's holding this shit down. So like that was a lot of like how the dynamics of that band kind of work. Because you have these two, Leia's like she's a theater art person. And so she's very physical with her performances in art, and she's always like messing with Peter, and he's just a wild man. I played in a band with him before July Talk, and he's always just been a wild performer, crazy man. And so yeah, that's their job. Our job is to hold it down and to try to make it, I mean, a lot of energy and like make it exciting, but like try to not we don't jam basically, really. Like it's a lot of like these are the structures because like they're gonna go off and do their crazy stuff, and we're gonna like hold it down, the structure down, and like that's how it works in this band,
It
really.
almost it almost sounds like jazz in the sense that you're holding down the structure and there is a solo going on, and it could go on beyond what you're expecting, or it could take different shapes.
Oh yeah.
It's like physical jazz.
Yeah, I mean that is kind of true in the way that like we have cues, or you got to really watch,
Mm.
especially Leia, I would say, because she'll just kind of go off. Like we have certain times where songs will stop and there'll be a Leia part, a vocal or whatever, or a song like The Garden, for instance. Like we've been playing that song since like 2011, 2012, whenever, probably 11. And it's always kind of different even now. So like there's a certain point where Leia's vocal should come in, but she just goes and does. And I'm doing like the country roll type thing and the shuffle, and that can get crazy because it can go on for like fucking 5 minutes, and she's just doing something that you're like, wow, this is insanely creative, and you're just like off the top of your head, you're doing something like really interesting and magical. And so and then you like get a cue to come back in, but you don't know how long it will be or when it's going to happen. You just have to like watch and listen. And we do a lot of that stuff in our live performance. Like it's not like they'll happen out of nowhere. Sometimes there's times when it doesn't always work where people will kind of like think that, one of
Mm.
them will think
Mm.
you're all there, but you're not because you've never really done that spot. You've never done that in that spot of a song before, and you're like, oh, okay.
But
But
that's
most of the
that's what makes it so thrilling, right? The risk that it is dangerous in the sense that it can fall apart for real.
oh yeah,
Like
100%.
that's the Stooges, that's Iggy Pop. Like it can fall flat on its face, and that's what makes it so exciting, and that's what makes it so spectacular when it doesn't fall apart.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of like it's interesting. It's like I'm not trying to say our band's better or worse or anything. I'm just saying what our band is, I guess, in the scene we're in more, because I think lots of bands do this, but like in the more like mainstream Canadian rock scene, we're kind of more spontaneous. And like I think a lot of bands now are kind of like they are playing to clicks and they are playing to with tracks and stuff, and they sound incredible, but that unpredictability is gone immediately. You can't do any of that stuff. So, I mean, even with our lighting and video people, they have to be watching and ready at all times. They're part of the band. Whereas like some of the other light shows or whatever, like they know each song's gonna be, this song is gonna be 3 minutes and 43 seconds every time. And these are what
Yeah.
changes are gonna be every time. Whereas our song is like, holy fuck, Danny's playing that song super fast today. I better like get my cues going like faster. Who knows? That happens a lot.
Yeah,
I'm
that happens.
I get
That
too
happens.
excited. Guilty of it.
So I saw you guys on the first of the two back-to-back Massey Hall shows. How did you find this tour?
I thought this tour was amazing. It went really well. I thought Canada was great. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was really great. Attendance was good. Crowds were great.
Was there any particular moments like stood out to you? Any particular shows that really, I don't know, something happened on stage like
Massey Hall
one of
were like, I mean, I guess I should this last tour was the first tour I was sober completely. So for me, it was a bit of adjustment. So like the first Massey Hall show is the first show. Not that I like get hammered before a show or anything. I learned my lesson back in the day to not do that. But it's like I would have some drinks for a
Hmm.
show and then play. This show, the Massey Hall show, is my first time like completely sober. Maybe not first time, sounding crazy, but like, yeah, with that mindset, being like, we're sober, no drinking. And so that was interesting. I felt way more. I think the thing for me on this tour that I was like struggling with was being like super present and like because I was like feeling great and my brain was fresh, I was thinking a lot. Whereas like I would kind of numb that maybe. And so is not good, I don't think, in music. Like when you start thinking about the fill coming up or like all this, it's like that's when you fuck it up. So I was really like I had certain shows that were tough for that. I was just thinking too much. And it usually was because I was like a little tired, I think.
Hmm.
So if I didn't like have my afternoon nap or something like before the show, it's like my brain was a little tired. I was thinking too much. Honestly, the tour was amazing. Some shows that stood out for me that I didn't love, like the Winnipeg show. Sometimes we did a lot of theaters, which can either be like really incredibly awesome and beautiful, or like a little bit lacking in energy. And I think that also has to do with like sometimes the day of the week.
Okay,
So if you're
yeah.
playing on a theater on a Monday or a Tuesday, like they're not going to be as rowdy as a club on a Saturday. And so I think like a little bit for me as like probably the person, I mean, Peter and Leia bring a lot, everyone brings a lot of energy, but obviously we talked about drums, like bringing the energy. I think we feed it to the rest of the band. Like sometimes that was a little harder on certain nights, or like because if you're not getting the response from the crowd, the crowd really feeds you. And I think it is like a back and forth in that way.
It's so cyclical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, like some of the theater shows felt harder. It's like on the last tour when we played Hamilton in the theater. I live in Hamilton now. Is our first show in Hamilton since I lived here, and I was like so excited for it. I think it was a Tuesday night or something, and I was just like bummed out because I was like, this crowd just seems too chill. I
Hmm.
don't know. Anyways, again, you get in your head, right? Like sometimes these things are like made up in your head. The other fascinating thing is like we can all get off stage at the same show, like playing the same show, and all have a different opinion of how it went.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, especially sitting at the back of the stage behind everyone and behind the lights, sometimes that's changes your idea of what you actually saw and what you might have missed.
Yeah, I mean, I find I usually don't want to be bummed out after a show, so unless it goes really bad, I'm pretty like pumped about it. Like I think we do. I'm not like some people are harder on themselves than others, and I think that's good, but it's also bad sometimes. And like I think I do have the best seat. I write the set list because I think my seat I can like just like see the whole show as a show
Hmm.
maybe more than the other members are, and kind of see what the crowd's reacting to and all that type of stuff. And so I'm obsessed with like a flow of a set and trying to like energy, chill for a bit, energy, like I want it to have like a kind of a sequence to it. And so sometimes in that vein, like I watch a show and I think it's like, and I listen to the show in our in ears and I'm like, we're playing tight. This is awesome. But like someone will come off stage and they think they had a bad show and they're like, the show's terrible. And they're like, yeah, I don't think it was. And we recorded every show on this tour. So, I mean, we'll be able to tell. I think we might be doing maybe a live album.
That's cool. That's cool. Should I edit that
I'm
out? Is this a
curious.
secret? Is this a July talk
I don't know if it's
secret?
really a secret. I just
Okay.
don't know if it's gonna happen for sure. But we have a lot of live material from that
Okay.
last tour, so it could happen.
That's
Depending
uh
on how
that's
we
really cool.
depending on how it sounds. We'll
All
see.
right. All right. Um, is there a particular song or songs that really stand out to you playing as just a favorite for you to play live?
Guns and Ammunition always slays. I just think it's like got that like people love that song. I think we perform it well. And I just think it's got that thing that always seems to go over well. So it's fun to play. Um I like rock. I love like After This is a favorite song. Now I Know. Those songs are fun. Push and Pull. I don't know. I like honestly a lot of our songs are like pretty fun to play.
I mean, you write parts that you want to enjoy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Shifting to the documentary, what was the initial intent with it? I mean, you guys obviously got everything filmed and recorded for it, right? But it was such a cool visual document of the band and specifically in reaction to 2020 and everything. Uh, was there like were you just always filming things over the years, all like almost constantly, and it was just like we'll continue doing things as is, or was there like this feeling that we're doing something different and special? Um, I'm just curious because it was a really cool film.
Yeah, I think basically what happened was we filmed the drive-in shows very beautifully. I mean, we had our like pick of all our friends. Josh and Peter went to film school. That's where they met. So we have a big film background, and then Leia now is doing a lot of video stuff and acting. So those three like were super in film, and so our band's always had a film thing going on. And then surrounding our band has always been like all their friends who are in film coming up, and now some of them are like way more established. So during the drive-in shows, we had the pick of like any crew because no one was doing anything. So we had our dream friends crew, and everyone was excited to work, and so it was filmed really well. And then that was like live streamed and everything. And so then I think that the idea was that Brittany was gonna like do kind of she was there because she wanted to like um her and her partner Matt were there to film and just like document like the behind the scenes and like all that type of stuff because I think they were gonna do like a mini doc about it, something like that. And then it just like started to evolve into like more of a actual huge project with this narrative. And then she was given because we had a guy that Peter and I lived with forever, and he's one of our best friends, Jared Rab. He was always like filming stuff. We used to do stuff on tour from the road. So there's all that footage. When we were recording our first album, people were there filming. It might have been him or his Adam Crosby or something. Just like always cameras around, like in our band, because it was a film band. So film school band. So there's just like apparently I don't know like all of it. This is not like my thing. I've just heard from Brittany and Peter and stuff like there's a lot of gigs of footage of our band. So there could be potentially down the road there could be more. Who knows? But for this doc, she just went through like I feel like she said like something like 10,000 hours of footage. I don't know. It's something like
Wow.
I don't know if that's right. I'm trying to remember. I hope I'm not exaggerating, but it's like something outrageous. And she didn't go through. I mean, she spent like 2 years working on this thing, and it's super well done. 2 or 3 years.
She
3
could
years.
have seen it all.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure she went through like a lot of it.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
crazy.
it's just
It
always been filmed. And then she picked what she thought would make the best story around the band. So this thing just didn't it wasn't just about the drive-in anymore. It was more of a doc about the band from we started in 2011. So it's probably footage from like 2012, I think, on.
hmm. Cool. Yeah, it felt like this culminating point almost like the way the doc jumps back to, like 8 years ago sort of thing and kind of that back and forth. It felt like it was so much of you guys was building up to this point and so much has happened since then for the band, right? But I thought it was really cool because it felt very authentic to you all as individuals, but also kind of furthering the July Talk aesthetic
Mhm.
visually. It's just very well done.
Yeah. Yeah, she did an incredible job. And that was her first film, and she's an amazing person. And yeah. I don't know if anyone hasn't seen it, you can stream it Apple and I don't know. I don't think it's on like a streaming service yet, and
It's
maybe it
on
will.
Apple TV, and I watched it on like I watched it off of like a paid YouTube channel thing.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you might have to rent it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would recommend it. It was a really cool look at just not only you guys, but also just the kind of the commentary of like the Canadian music scene as well. It was very well done.
I was to be honest, I was a little worried about it coming out now because I feel like I thought like maybe people would just be like sick of hearing about the pandemic. Like they don't want to like hear it. But I do think, and I don't know if that's the case, but I do think that like 10 years down the road, like that this doc will be like really interesting to watch. Like once we've forgotten really, or people that weren't around, who knows, to see what it was like to go to a show during that time. Because it's super well filmed. It's a beautiful film.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I
yeah,
don't I
so
don't know if people are sick of it. Like it was only like restrictions in our end really only lifted like fully at some point in like what was it, 2022, right? Like
that's what I mean. It's so fresh. Like by being sick of it, I mean like, do people want to watch a documentary about the pandemic when we just went through it all? So
yeah.
that was my kind of worry about it. Like my internal like, is this cool?
Yeah.
I always thought it would be a really cool thing to have documented. I think that it's like in that way, I think it's like more an important film. Like I think even though it's about our band or whatever, it's a kind of a cool time capsule of
Absolutely. Yeah.
something because it's so well done. I'm not really sure there's gonna be a ton of like rock show documentaries from that time
I don't
that
think
are
so.
that well done.
I don't think
So it's
so. But
kind of
that
a cool
was
thing.
I think the reason why it's maybe isn't too fresh, I think at the end of the doc or in the last couple of minutes, Leia says something along the lines of, I hope things don't go back truly normal. I hope we learn things and can enter back to, normalcy with these lessons and a new way of living. And, you know, I feel as though we kind of just went back to normal very suddenly in a weird way, right? We went from heavy restrictions to just to normal, and maybe in that sense it feels like such a long time ago because normal came so quickly.
Hmm.
um I think it's such an interesting piece, like you're saying, though, because no matter what you thought of or what side of this very divisive event you were on, it was a universal experience for the world, and it's so interesting, like it connects with people, right? And like this week I started watching The Last of Us, and just the way that show opens with people not knowing what's going on, it
Yeah.
was like, oh man, that's like 2 years ago. And then watching your documentary, back to back almost, and seeing everyone wearing masks the first day, and I was like, oh right, yes, that was, like normal. And there's a shot of I think it's the guy uh working at the drive-in theater not wearing a mask talking to you
Yeah.
guys, and I was like, oh yeah, like 2020 was
Weird.
so, it was such a weird moment, and we all experienced this weirdness together.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it went back 100% to normal. I think there's a lot of things that are lingering from it. I think the music industry's in a weird spot from it.
Mm, yeah.
And not to say that there's not a lot of positive, but I think a lot of stuff is like more, I don't know if people have fully gotten back. And I think what Leia too, I mean, I'd be curious to like ask her what she thinks, but I think she was also talking about like politically a lot happened throughout that time too.
Mm-hmm.
Lives matter and a lot of stuff like that. So I think she kind of meant like hopefully we don't go back to the way we were and we kind of grow as better people.
Yeah.
Society. I don't know if it's there's yeah, the world's still kind of messed up, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We could all be a little kinder.
But yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
on a very similar note to where you left that off, though, after listening to your music, watching you guys live, the documentary, there's so much that encompasses what July Talk is. You guys are this modern indie alternative rock band with like a strong sort of blues foundation, but like there's so much more than just the music. You are very like socially political, very inclusive. Um, the idea of just love lives here is just such a nice way of encapsulating it. But I'm very curious, what does July Talk, where it is something that can be so many things, what does July Talk mean to you?
Yeah, I really think that I do think our band is a bigger mindset. I've learned a ton from it. To be honest, like from being in this band. Like I came from London, Ontario, you know, middle class white family, and I'm 41 years old, so I grew up in a time that wasn't as politically correct, really. Like you look at like Woodstock 99, I watched that doc and I'm like, that's kind of when I was in high school and everyone it's I can't believe how even from the early 90s it like went backwards so far and it's a terrible time. But that would have been my high school like coming up. So I just learned a lot, especially really from everyone, but like from Leia especially, like some of the language I use, some of the ideas. Like I do think we are, without us realizing it, we sometimes are taught things by our parents or our family or our surroundings, and we don't really realize that we're doing certain things or saying certain things. And you got to really look at yourself. I think the people, when you know, I think if you hear people saying things you don't agree with or doing things you don't agree with, I think they should be told and aware of it in a nice way, because they may not be doing it maliciously, and they may just not realize they're saying a certain word or doing certain things. You know, I'm talking about racism, sexism, homophobia, everything, just language in general. Like, I think I was always like in certain ways on the right team and on the right side of feminism and all that type of stuff. I was raised by a single mom with and a sister, and like respect women to the max, but at the same time, certain language you use when I was coming up was like inappropriate.
Yeah.
Learned a lot. Just that's an example. It makes you think, the band, and I think our lyrics do this, and we have done this as people. We talk to each other, we have discussions, debates. We've toured a lot around the world, and we've seen a lot of different things where people are worse off, better off, whatever you want to say, but like, yeah, just always like keeping an open mind, having discussions, and just being like, for me, I think instead of people attacking and jumping on sides before hearing both sides and maybe understanding where people are coming from, I think we need to like listen and just like really be loving and open minded and just like tell people. I don't know. If your parents say something you don't agree with, let them know. They may not understand or know that they're saying something wrong, and they may
Mhm.
not deserve to be yelled at immediately. Maybe if they do it 3 more times and you have told them, then you yell at them to stop it. But yeah, I think people just need to, you know, be patient. People are learning with pronouns, stuff like that. I messed up earlier in this podcast and called Cody a he. I did not mean to do that. I know Cody is a they from Crownlands. And yeah, I apologize for that, but hopefully they understand that I misspoke. And I think that's kind of, yeah, I think just love. It's all about love. And I think that's really, July Talk just wants everyone to be loving, open minded, caring, and, better people.
Yeah. I think that was really, really resonant from watching the documentary, especially. And listening to Leia talk about that heckler about maybe halfway through or so. Just the way, she was like, I hate you because I'm up at night writing this and thinking about what you said, but I also love you because you're the product of, such a broken system and you need healing. Uh, there's such a authentic, such a genuine sense of kindness about the band.
Hmm. Yeah. And it is really like, I think that like a lot of the political stuff, like I would say probably like Peter and Leia are, because they're the front people and have, the voice of the band, they're obviously like really spearheading all those ideas, and like Wake the Giant Festival in Thunder Bay was their thing. Love Lives Here, the poster was Leia's. She wrote that. And like I had, at the time I didn't realize how impactful, like it really seemed to resonate around the music industry. And I've seen it, like I've had friends like send me pictures from festivals we're not even playing, where like a version of that poster is up on the big screen. And I do think it is very important um to do that. And I think like that scene when that happened in Buffalo, we it's a shame. And it's just like the reason we're not jumping in the crowd and beating the guy up is because like systemically it's something he was taught something. Hopefully he learned from that experience and became a better person. If not, then he's an idiot. But like, yeah, it's surprising to see someone at a July Talk show when our shows, all the lyrics are clearly,
Yeah.
about what they're about, and some guy yells at. But we also just had on this last tour in Edmonton, um, Peter was doing Raw, a song from our new album that's just like on the album it's just him and piano keys. But he was doing it in a theater, just him by himself, and a cappella. And someone, like a lady or something, yelled out, "Show us your dick." And it's like in the middle of his performance, and he stopped, like it shocked him. And it's just like it's a completely silent theater, and he's pouring his heart out in this moment, but I think it like makes people feel awkward or something. Like, why would you yell that out?
Yeah, that's
It
it's such
doesn't
an emotional,
care.
like vulnerably, musically and
Yeah.
contextually, like
And
such a
so,
vulnerable moment of the show.
and this was a woman that did it. So it's like, I don't know, it's like, I don't know, it makes you think. And like being in this band, as you know, it really is like a learning experience, and I'm learning stuff all the time still. We all are. And the people we collaborate with, have different views on things and new ideas and come from different backgrounds. So you're like meeting and collaborating with people that are incredible. And yeah, I'm really thankful. I mean, it's hard at times because you have to look at yourself like deep down and truthfully, and make sure you are doing things for the right reasons. And that's the other thing. I think our band, like, um is not like, I mean, I'm sure we all have egos in some way, but like it's kind of like you check each other and make sure that like you're being a good person first, I think.
It's a good way of doing it.
Mhm.
That's a good way of doing it. Um, so you mentioned this rumored possible or not possible live album, but I am curious that, the first half of this year was so huge for the band. What's what's next?
We're just off for a little bit, um taking it easy, and then I imagine, yeah, like the live album, I honestly am like, I know that there's a lot of live audio, and I know there's stuff being mixed. Whether it comes out at this point
Hmm.
is honestly, I have no idea. And that will just be up to like likely all of us hearing it and trying to like think if it's better to be out in the world or just in the vault. But we also have, I don't know, I've heard a few different things. Like we have a lot of B-side stuff from all the records. I think we need to, like, the way the world works now, music industry, we gotta work on some new stuff. So I think people are, writing up ideas. But we have a show. We have two shows in September. One in Sarnia, headlining a festival there with the Beaches, and one in St. Catharines area, Cicada Fest. We're playing with like Sloan and Dirty Nil, a lot of other awesome bands. I think Shad maybe, which is cool. Shad's
Cool.
great.
Yeah. That's an awesome
London,
lineup.
where I'm from, same age. I didn't really know him there. I actually met him really at the Junos, our first Junos we went to. We were like presented with him, and so it was cool. Uh,
Had to make it all the way to the Junos to meet someone you could have known at your hometown.
he knew like people. I like he knew a guy really well. I think he went to school with this guy Niles that I was in a band with before July Talk, but I just never really met him. We didn't cross paths.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So honestly, it's a bit of a question mark, but like some shows coming up, and then who knows about releases.
All right. Whatever it is, I'm looking forward to it. Uh, the last question I have here, because this is a podcast about records and music. The cliche classic desert island pick. If you had to be stuck on an island with three albums, which would they be?
REM Automatic for the People, Nirvana In Utero,
Fantastic choice. Yeah.
and Beastie Boys, Paul's Boutique.
Oh. Oh.
I guess those three. I also love Tribe Called Quest a lot. So it could be Midnight Marauders. But I don't
Oh,
know.
another. See, I would always. Hmm.
What's your favorite? What are your three? Wait, what's the first question? Were you talking about Tribe? What's your favorite Tribe album?
uh oh, I'm drawing a blank. Uh
Or was that the one you were talking about? The
yeah, well
band?
I was gonna talk about Tribe and Beastie Boys, but I'm drawing a blank on the name of the Tribe record, which is terrible.
Low End Theory?
Low End Theory, absolutely. That's the one I would probably
That's
go
the
with.
other one. They're both incredible, but do you
Yeah.
know that Low End Theory came out the same day as Nevermind and Blood Sugar Sex Magic and Tribe?
What a
That
crazy
day is
day.
and Primal Screams record, apparently. I was just looking at this recently. But what a crazy day for like music. That was
Yeah.
I'm too I'm old, but I'm too young to for that to be like my music really completely. But my uncle was 12 years older than me. So when I was a kid, I was
Mm.
like only listening to like I remember like I listened to Guns N' Roses a lot and like Metallica and Ozzy and AC/DC, stuff like that when I was little. And then when Nirvana came out, like smell I think it's why I'm so obsessed. Like it's just weird. I'm kind of obsessed with Nirvana, but it's like I remember that moment like a lot of people would say. Like Smells Like Teen Spirit was crazy. It was different from what you heard. It was like, what is this song? And it changed the face, it changed everything. I
Absolutely.
remember hearing it like
Absolutely.
legit. I remember the feeling I had being like, I've never heard anything like this, even though I understand now it's influenced by a lot of like more, late 80s underground punk world stuff. So it did exist. It's not like it was that, but in the mainstream, it was pretty groundbreaking. I'd never heard anything like it. I was like 9 years old or something. Anyways, still love that era.
Yeah. Yeah.
91, 91 to 96. A lot of great hip hop.
Yeah. Yeah.
The whole
A lot of
it
great
was
alternative
shit in
music.
the grunge world.
Yeah.
It turned
Yeah.
shitty fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
That era
the
was only
whole
like you look at like Nirvana's only really around for like 3 years. Like they
I
got
mean,
popular and I know Bleach existed. I know they were around for a long time. But when Nirvana broke in 91 and then he was dead in 94.
yeah. Yeah.
That was
I
it.
like grunge was like it was this reaction to the over commercialization of basically hard rock in the 80s. And you had so much great music coming in that was just not, quote unquote marketable or not, like it wouldn't reach mainstream appeal. And then it somehow did. It just
Yeah.
connected with people in a way that it otherwise wouldn't have. And by the time the 96, 97 comes around, that's when the labels kind of catch up
Straightforward.
and we can make this marketable and viable because other people already have, and it becomes super. It almost, the same way that like hair metal became a parody of itself.
Yeah.
The late 90s grunge is almost a parody of itself in that same context.
Yeah. I think if you haven't seen it, there's a doc that I watched when I was really young. And then I watched it again probably in the early 2000s because I went through I hated, again, that whole Woodstock. Like now I can appreciate some new metal stuff, but at the time, like I love Deftones, probably one of my favorite bands.
Mm,
And I like some Corn stuff. I didn't never really got on Limp Bizkit, but like I stopped listening to rock in that era and just listened to a lot of like underground hip hop stuff. And then so from like 95 to like 2001, whenever the Strokes came out with their first record, I heard
okay,
that
yeah.
I heard that in a American Eagle. My girlfriend was like at the time was trying on something and I was like, "What is this? This is kind of awesome." Bought the record. Then I started to get back into rock because there was some good shit coming out. And then I watched this documentary, Live Tonight Sold Out by Nirvana. And it's a documentary that Kurt Cobain actually put together. It's like footage of them live and interviews, but it's all around the time of the Nevermind breaking. And it's mind blowing. I think the music industry, he changed the way they thought because he just messed with everyone. They would
Hmm.
go on like talk shows and like play like, okay, here's Nirvana playing their new hit single Lithium, and then play like Territorial Pissings and like smash it. You'll be like, what the fuck? Or like, like go on Top of the Pops and like sing Smells Like Teen Spirit like Morrissey, and like Dave Grohl like, throwing his arms up in the air, not really playing drums because it's all backtrack shit. It's
Yeah.
just like there's so much footage in that where I was like, this is the coolest fucking thing ever. They were like, no band has the balls to do what they did now. Like you
Yeah.
couldn't even do it now. It's like he did that and everyone was like, oh wait, we can't. Like I think even by the time like Rape Me came out and stuff, like they were like, no, you can't play that song on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I
cool.
think
I've
he
never
might
heard
have.
of this before. I've never heard of this. I wrote a note. I'm gonna watch this for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely watch it. I mean, you can find it on YouTube probably. But yeah, Live Tonight Sold Out. It's a really cool. There's just a lot of cool footage, and yeah, I don't know. I just think the impact of that time. Like you look at the bands that had big songs like Primus and Ministry, and like it's kind of crazy when you look at what's popular now, and you're like, whatever, I get it, pop, it's fine, it's all nice. Even the rock stuff's kind of nice now. But like back in that short couple of years, there is the craziest shit going on in the mainstream.
Yeah, it was such a weird time looking back at it. Like I was born in 94, so I didn't get to experience it. But, looking back at it and hearing the music and, reading books about it, yeah, Ministry is just the perfect example. How did that band become mainstream
Yeah. Like
popular
Jesus
in,
Built
in
My
any
Hot
time?
Rod, which is another one of my favorite bands of all time, is Butthole Surfers. And not because of like Pepper and the stuff a lot of people have heard, because of their early 80s stuff. I think it's just like incredible art, punk, weird. It's just really interesting stuff. Music, which is not for everyone, but I love it. But yeah, like Butthole Surfers with Ministry, Jesus Built My Hot Rod was like a number one. I feel like that was a hit song. And if you listen to it now, you're like, that song's crazy.
It is crazy. It is.
Anyways, not that it's good. I don't know if I'd even like it if the music I like was mainstream. I'm one of those people. Music
That's fair.
snob. I
Yeah.
just have to complain about music, I think.
Yeah,
My wife.
my wife calls me a music snob. I'm not at the point of acceptance though. I still deny it to her, but yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of friends that are even more music snobs than me, and they would be like, your taste in music is garbage. What do you? And I mean, it could be, but I like it, so that's fine. But they're all into like German synth from the 70s. Like they're real like weirdo music nerds. I'm like, I don't know. All right. But like anything with a song structure to them is like sold out. So you're like, oh,
That's too conventional. Structure is just
it's too much.
we're just building
That
towards a,
German
a
synth,
post-structure musical
German synth
landscape.
guy from the 70s, that's where we're at right now. Anyway,
Cool, man. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about with the band or anything like that for the episode?
no, I love them and I miss them. And yeah, I mean, we still see each other sometimes. We don't hang out all the time because that's just what happens when you've been a band for 12 years. It's crazy we've been a band for 12 years. I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like that. We're like in our Casino Rama years now. Josh and I are gonna go on. I always talk about it with my dad all the time. Josh and I are gonna go on tour as July Talk with like You know how all the old bands, they just have like two members, and one's like, ours is going to be the bass player and drummer, and then we'll have replacement members. They'll probably be holograms or something.
Yeah, yeah.
You can come see us at Casino Rama.
I mean, on that idea of 12 years, what was the first point that you were like, "Oh my gosh, I think we made it." You know what I mean? Like what was that first moment, whether you had actually made it or not?
Yeah, I don't know. I go through phases where I feel like I thought we made it, and then I'm like, oh, but not like made it. We've never made it. We did things like you talk about Red Hot Chili Peppers. We got to open for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and that was just the two bands, and that was wild. Like 90,000 people. I actually got to hang out with Chad Smith for a bit.
Amazing.
Really cool. He was a cool guy. Anyways, there's moments throughout our career that are just like super special. I don't think we ever felt like we were like overly rock star made it, but I know we do better than like we're very thankful for where we're at as a band and to make a living playing music. Like we understand that is, we're super super lucky, and we don't take that for granted, but we're always hustle. Like it's a hustle no matter what. Like I think you just are like always trying to stay above water in the
Mhm.
music industry.
Particularly as I guess a Canadian rock band,
Yeah. So
right?
you're just like always going, I guess the moment where I thought we made it back in the day was like when Guns and Ammunition was on the edge, or like whatever radio stations was on. And I would be like delivering beer for Mill Street, and I'd go into the kitchen to drop the keg off, and Guns and Ammunition was on the radio, and I was like, I made it. Here I am delivering kegs while my not much has changed. Just kidding. But yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of when we started. And then to be honest, like I know back then we weren't like radio wasn't that important, but it really did change our crowd, like change the amount of people that came to our exposure. A lot more people were coming to our shows after Guns and Ammunition was on the radio. It changed a lot. And
For
then
sure. Yeah.
throughout our career, more live stuff, live shows, there's certain shows that were like huge steps where I was like, oh wow, we've like made it to a new step, new level. Leia calls it like a video game. It's like you level up and you get more stuff. She thinks it's like that's how she compares it. It's like you're like, okay,
Okay.
you
Yeah.
got to this level and now you get a trailer. You got to this level and now you get a guitar tech. You know what I mean? It's like that. And so like for us, Hillside Fest in Guelph, when we played that, I thought like, oh wow, we like made a step up. And then we played Way Home, and I'm like, holy shit, just got bigger. Like there's just like moments where I'm like, oh, things just changed.
Yeah, that was a turning point.
Yeah. So, but I do. It's funny. I didn't notice. I think like there was a bit of that on the last tour, but I didn't notice it as much. I don't know why, but definitely like I think that was probably the biggest headlining tour we've done. So that's kind of a step up, right? I don't
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
know. I don't know.
For sure. Well, congrats to all of that. And once again, thank you very much for joining me on Beats by Jer.
Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, this was awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to my conversation with Danny Miles. July Talks Remembered Never Before is available at your favorite record store and across all streaming platforms. You can watch July Talk Love Lives Here on YouTube and Apple TV. Remember to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Beats by Jer. I'm your host, Jared Harris, and this has been Beats by Jer.